You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 40, Ouroboros, Part 2.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Marina Kravchuk.
And I am Charlene Schmidt. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series, we discover what makes each of them special, and we see if there's any morals, meanings, or messages that we've learned.
This week, we finish our episodic coverage with the Season 2 finale, Ouroboros Part 2. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth review podcast, so if you have not seen this episode, you may want to put us on pause, watch the episode, and then come back to hear us talk all about it.
Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so be sure to hit all the buttons. Hit the like button, the share button, the subscribe button. Do that on the YouTube channel and hit subscribe on the podcatcher of your choice. And if you've got 5 seconds, you can leave us a rating and a review. That would be really nice. We would really appreciate that very much. And you can also follow Mission Log Prodigy on Instagram at Mission Log Prodigy to keep up with all of our latest news and updates.
And we have one more thing to tell you before we jump into this week's episode, and that is to tell you all about our giveaway, where you can win some pretty cool Prodigy merch, something like both Prodigy seasons on Blu-rays. And that's just one of the prizes you can win. So head over to the link in the description of this episode for a link to enter. And speaking of which, stay tuned to the end of this video because we will be giving you a secret code that you can find only here in this episode. With all that said, let's kick things off for this show by answering the same questions we ask our cadets. So, Char, did you like the episode?
Yes. Oh my goodness. What a satisfying conclusion to this season. We get just enough closure so that if this is the last installment we get a Prodigy, it solidly wraps things up. But at the same time, there's this whole other door we could kick open if Netflix orders a third season, which I really hope they do. So yeah, fingers crossed. How about you?
Oh, this is so true. This was incredibly satisfying. This is how you do a finale. Every single character rises to the occasion. And we truly get a closure. And I would say for the adventures of whole 2 seasons, really. All the while simultaneously slotting into the events of Children of Mars and Picard. The ending kind of serves as a sort of reality check. Let's face it. There was a bit of a dampener, but I still got very sort of all good things / endgame vibes. So this is not the end. Out there somewhere, our crew goes onwards.
Yeah, it definitely has that similar, this is their season finale, maybe a series finale kind of a vibe for sure. They did not let anything, they didn't hold anything back, really.
Now for the unfair question. What was your favorite part?
I actually do have one moment that really stood out, believe it or not. I thought there would be a million of them, but no, one thing really hit me, and that is the moment just after Voyager and the Protostar fight past the Loom, and all that's left is the beauty of that wormhole. And there's this moment of silence, and then the slow aura of music comes back, and it physically registers in that moment that they're going to make it. It's okay to exhale. And in the Babylon 5 world, another show that I absolutely love, it's one moment of perfect beauty. That's how I describe it. How about you?
Well, 2 things come to mind, and it's a little bit unfair because, the moment when they leave Protostar, so it's not even the moment, it's whole scene really. So when they leave Protostar as they found her in the past, and we get the flashback of everything that followed or follows, timey-wimey stuff.
Yes.
And it's so incredibly, thanks for the memories. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. We've come full circle. And the second scene is pretty much the entire backhand post Mars attack, because we have, again, everybody gets this little wrap up. We finally arrive at the conclusion, truly. Very beautifully done. So like I said, it's a little bit unfair because it's literally a whole chunk of about 5 or 6 minutes where we have everything happening.
You know what? Given that this is the last episode, I think that's fair. That is okay. You're allowed to cheat a little.
Yeah, so it's not so much moments as whole scenes. I love that finale. It was great. So, what did we learn?
Oh my gosh, a lot of things. To break it down into something kind of succinct, I decided to go with the bigger picture type of thing, and that is
Yeah.
how life is this ongoing adventure. It's filled with peaks and valleys, and things change. Sometimes you go on an epic adventure like you do on the Protostar, and sometimes there's a crisis that changes life as we know it, and other times things are just calmer. You know, maybe you're just studying for exams or you're gardening. You're just doing your day to day things. And you know what? It occurred to me, it's important to enjoy all of life for what it is because we never know what's coming next. That's a big thing I got
Yeah.
out of this episode.
Yeah,
How about you?
I agree. It's very much so. I mean, there's a quote by one of Greek philosophers that says the only constant is in life is change, and it's very true. I mean, we've gone through an amazing change through these 2 seasons, and especially through this 2nd season. Sort of the usual twist that we already had, and the fact is, no one faces this alone. Something that Janeway says, and it literally, it's beautifully summarized in this episode. So much stuff is happening. You have 2 ships. You don't really have a moment ever where anyone says, okay, you're doing this thing. It's always like, okay, here's what we are going to do. So they're facing this whole situation together and they're resolving it. I mean, there's a moment when Wesley says, like, well, I sent you on this path. I'm going to see it through. I'm not leaving you.
Yeah.
And something that is basically, I think, the ultimate basis of what Star Trek is that do not abandon hope.
Yeah,
Alki didn't
big
do
one.
it. Janeway and Hooker certainly didn't do it. Even Chakotay being stuck for 10 years, you gotta admit, I mean, he went on because there was probably still some scintilla of hope left. And, at the very least, he was doing his duty. So in this case, I think it's a pretty major one, never lose hope.
Yeah, very big theme throughout the whole season, the whole series, really.
Well, thank you, Char, for your answers to this week's questions. And now it's time for this episode's recap.
Okay, it is Ouroboros Part 2, written by Kevin Hageman, Dan Hageman, and Aaron J. Waltke, directed by Ruolin Lee. Here we go. As guards take the defeated Ascensia away on Solum, the ground starts to shake. They're coming. The Loom. What have I done? Ascensia asks. Frightened Vanicott run for shelter as Iltheron tells Gwyn she should go. She is needed. She beams to the Protostar, where Wesley theorizes that the Loom showed up due to tears and space-time being bigger than they anticipated. The only way out of this problem is through it, through the swarm and through the wormhole. Voyager will go through the wormhole with the Protostar until it's safe to put the ship on autopilot. The Protostar will lead the way, while Voyager will ward off the Loom, and spare no expense on firing the weapons. The future depends on their success. While they ride this out, Dal comments to Wesley that he was right about them all needing to be together. Wesley has to clarify that the future he sees with them all together doesn't end in this moment. The real reason hasn't happened yet. When Voyager loses its navigation systems, guess who steps in? Jillian, Cetacean Ops. She navigates them past the Loom until all they see before them is the serene sight of just a wormhole. Well, not just that. Temporal echoes fly past as timelines converge. What was also will be, as it always was meant to be. Chakotay activates the Protostar's autopilot, and this is hologram Janeway's cue to say goodbye to them all, for now. But this time, they do have a copy of her thanks to the EMH backup module on Voyager, so her memories will not be lost. As they prepare for beam out, Dal places his hand on the command chair one last time. And, one last thing. Dal places his Protostar-style comm badge where they first found it, and now the ship is exactly as they found it. Voyager and the Protostar part ways. My, how far everyone has come since a group of wide-eyed misfits from Tars Lamora took a little ship they found for a ride. And from there, they have come together, beaten the odds countless times, and proven that anything is possible, including the impossible. Cut to Tars Lamora, and there sits the Protostar, waiting for her destiny. Meanwhile, the wormhole closes behind Voyager as she makes her exit. Now that the timeline is restored, the Loom also make their exit, and Gwyn's armband deactivates. She's here to stay. They did it. Later on Solum, Admiral Janeway and Iltheron shake hands as they pave the way toward a peaceful future. Life continues moving forward. The EMH finishes another holo novel, no doubt a masterpiece. Chakotay takes command of Voyager, and finally, Wesley calls his mom. He does better than that, actually, because shortly after calling in, he shows up in person, and he's introduced to Jack, his little brother. Our would-be cadets are actual cadets, planning their futures now that they're back at Starfleet Academy. Dal's still on the command track, for now, but is taking things one step at a time. Everyone's devices start beeping with alerts, and breaking news comes on screen. Synths have attacked at the Utopia Planatia shipyards on Mars. Now retired and tending to a thriving garden, Janeway isn't aware of what is happening until Chakotay personally delivers the news. It's dire, and Starfleet needs her. When briefed by Admiral Jellicoe on how Starfleet plans to scale back in the aftermath of the attack, Janeway objects. There's too much at risk to stop Starfleet's mission of peace while exploring the galaxy. But the reality is that Starfleet lost a lot of people, and resources are short. That part of Starfleet's charter will have to wait. For the cadets, classes are suspended until further notice, and the future feels bleak. That is, until Admiral Janeway orders that they report to the shipyards. When they arrive, Janeway, Chakotay, and the EMH are waiting for them, and so is the ship. The USS Prodigy, a Protostar-class ship now deemed impractical and fit only for exploration. And also waiting for them are some pips. Yes, pips! Janeway called in some favors, and everyone's getting a field commission to serve in a new exploration program under Janeway's command. Their mission? To explore the far reaches of space and serve as a beacon of hope for those in need. This is why Wesley said they needed to stay together. Aboard their new ship, Janeway tells the crew they still have a lot to learn, so they will need an instructor. How does Emergency Command Hologram Janeway sound? And perhaps the most important feature on this bridge is 2 center seats. And Dal recites his qualifications for the position of number 1. It's Quinn's time to lead. And with that, our crew, all together, no longer in their cadet uniforms, are ready to proto-warp to the stars. The end.
The
end, Marina, the end!
I refuse.
Is somebody cutting onions? Oh.
All right.
Man,
well,
okay.
Well, I know that we both had quite a lot of observations, so we probably should start on that.
Let's get to it. Yes. I want to open up with a question for this episode. So as the Loom descend on Solum, was anybody erased from existence, and is anybody ever going to know the answer to that question if they were? Because that's what the Loom do.
Yeah, see, that's a great question, because, as the timeline healed itself, reintegrated itself, was there actually any recourse, or is it, that's it, once you're consumed by Loom, you basically disappear throughout the entire space-time, right? So, in which case, that's just horribly tragic. It's like you're gone and nobody even knows that you are.
Yeah.
So I guess that's question
big
mark.
question mark.
I think, yeah,
we'll save that one for when we talk to some folks and interview them for wrap-ups.
Yeah, but I have a strong suspicion that, it's probably one of the tragic losses of this entire situation. But yeah, the Loom is just unstoppable.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Voyager and the Protostar fighting their way past the Loom reminds me of a quote I think you'll appreciate. And that is, sometimes you've got to punch your way through.
Oh,
because they did.
Yeah. Yeah. And Janeway is very much in that mindset. I mean, when she set weapons to maximum, she's not joking. Yeah, they are punching through.
Punch.
Oh, speaking of, so reminding things, when Voyager A is clearing the way for Protostar, to get through the Loom into the wormhole, it kind of made me think of Timeless. When we have Delta Flyer flying in front of Voyager, sending course corrections, and I kid you not, for a moment I'm like, that I have very bad feeling about this, and of course, thankfully I was completely wrong about it, but for a moment I got that little drift.
Oh man, I did not think about that parallel at all. I'm kind of glad I didn't now, just because that would have given me a bad feeling. But actually, since we're talking about like things that we thought were going to maybe go awry, I was worried that hologram Janeway was going to have to sacrifice herself again.
Yes. Yeah,
and
I know.
I thought,
I was hoping for No, this was obviously was resolved in a beautiful manner. I'm so glad. I mean, I don't think I could have stood, the loss of her for the second time.
No.
So I was certain that, we're going to lose somebody. So I'm just so glad to be like completely wrong. Like this, I swear to God,
Right?
this finale blew my mind because it was nothing what I expected. I didn't guess anything, and it was just one spectacular surprise.
It was a happy ending. No one had to die, and I am perfectly okay with that.
Yeah.
This is good. Yes. So, okay, I had a quote just a moment ago. I've got one more, which is once more unto the breach, as Janeway says. Reminds me of, well, I have to channel Spock, where in Star Trek 6 he says, Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1.
I love it. We actually have a lot of quotes associated with this ending.
We do.
From
Yes.
classics and from other tracks. So I can't wait to actually bring up a few because it's just great fun. Kudos to the writers. It's something that I already mentioned. It's wonderful to see Wesley staying put with the crew. I mean, he could have stayed on Voyager. He could have just, I don't know, blinked out of existence now that things are on their way to, timeline being fixed. But, Chakotay says, we can take it from here. And he says, no, I set them on this path and I will see them through. And I think that's just incredibly decent of him. And good on Wes.
Yeah, good on you, and thank goodness you called your mom finally. Good gravy. Okay, one more quote, at least for the time being. We've crossed the threshold, and I'm sorry, anytime the word threshold comes up, I laugh because that will never not be funny because of the Voyager episode. And like anytime I'm at Target and they have their Threshold home goods brand, I'm tempted to buy it just because of that. No joke. Yes, I'm immature.
That moment when Dal is having a conversation with Wes, and Wes kind of just like, even his voice changes. It's like, oh yes, things yet to come, wondrous and terrible things. This reminded me, the cue when he's, trying to scare Picard, like, it's not safe out there. It's wondrous, it's not for the timid. So here's an interesting thought. So Wesley told them to stick together. As they misunderstood, we thought it was team spirit. He literally meant for them to stick together to solve the paradox snafu. But now it turns out that for them to stay together is a necessity. Potentially, maybe there's some future calamity that they needed again as a group. And who knows? Is Wesley ensuring that they are together and it's part of some other master plan of his? That's an idea,
right?
Season 3, huh?
Right, exactly. He knows what's coming. We don't. And that sounds like a perfect story opportunity. Just saying. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Jillian gets to be a hero in this last episode, and I am so happy for her. You have a really cool note about what she calls the echelon formation.
That's right. And this came up, I mean, again, thank goodness that, things get posted online. And, especially Aaron Waltke is incredibly generous with sharing, basically behind the scenes information. So, he posted it about 2 months ago, roughly. So this is a term that's actually used by whale biologists for a configuration formed by adult whales used to nurture and protect their young. So it's very fitting. So, Jillian is using this echelon formation, whatever it is within the navigational protocols that she's running, that basically is like, it allows Voyager to, protect Protostar. I thought it was incredibly fitting. Lovely.
How sweet is that? Oh, Jillian.
And just a very quick thing to something we already mentioned, the fact that Hologram Janeway was saved. I find it very fitting that it was actually EMH who took care of, copying her onto his own module from Voyager.
Yes.
And it kind of like felt almost like last moment, sort of like, and don't forget Hologram Janeway, she's going to be fine. But it was a great relief.
It was. One, Chakotay fulfilled his promise to her. He found a way. And two, the EMH, who better, excuse me, who better? He knows, he's navigated this path before. He can lead the way for her. And I'm so glad we have not lost her yet again.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Dal's placement of the Protostar style comm badge it almost feels like the comm badge itself is a proverbial reset button, which is like an in-joke in Star Trek. Because once it's in place, it's okay to exit and we can send the Protostar back in time. Reset button.
Perfect. This is such a great moment. And I have more to say on that once we get to the main discussion points, but it's beautifully done. Literally, it is a button.
Exactly.
So speaking of quotes, and this one gave me a thrill. It also came up online. Huge shout out to your Killerbrand, because he's the one who's finding all these nuggets and putting all the little connections between the different Star Trek productions. So there is a log that Janeway records at the very end, where she says, an old friend once said, "We do not feel the passage of time, but the presence of time within us." This is literally a quote of what Picard says to Data in the deleted scene from Star Trek Nemesis, where they're basically talking about that same thing, the passage of time. It seems such a great inclusion, and I absolutely love the fact that Janeway refers to Picard as an old friend, which is kind of echoed. If you remember, in Picard season 3, how many times Picard's like, "But should we talk to Admiral Janeway?" Unfortunately, we don't get to see her, but it's like, I'm glad that there is that connection where, between the two of them, they can save the Federation.
Yeah, it really seems like since Voyager got back, like Picard and Admiral Janeway, they were pretty good. They developed a friendship at the very least, became very good colleagues.
I would imagine. I mean, seeing how they have a lot of experiences in common, between the Borg and the Q.
This is true. They've got some more stories.
Remember, we were puzzling about this blue cube brick-faced aliens in the previous part. We see one again, and I am still stumped who it possibly, have we seen this species before? Is this something that was just created for this series? I don't know. Help.
Yeah. Don't know. Memory Alpha doesn't have anything yet the last time I checked, and so this is another question for wrap-up interviews. Maybe somebody can help us out. So I had to do a pause. I had to get screenshots of the EMH's Hollow novel just to see what that text on the pad actually said. And apparently there's a great T theme going on here. His story is called The Mentor, so I have to believe the main character is based on him, of course. And there's a lot of talk about drinking tea. Does that mean the EMH is a tea drinker now? Do he and Jean-Luc have tea discussions?
It's quite possible. I just love that Doctor is, still being the Doctor. That moment where he just dramatically announces, "This is the end," and there's a patient right behind him who kind of goes, while, he's talking about his Holo novel he just finished writing. It just completely cracked me up. And so, I actually rewatched this scene several times because I also wanted to catch what the words were on the screen. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, the Doctor is not the greatest writer. But the whole thing with him going just, "This is the end," it was just absolutely perfectly delivered.
Oh man, the things you do not want to hear in a doctor's office, right? Number one.
Right?
Yeah. Dude, he should know better than that one. But like you said, this is the EMH we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, we mentioned Wes did call his mom finally. His traveler powers seem to be back, and he got to meet his little brother Jack, who is, of course, highly featured in season 3 of Picard.
Yeah, and this is a lovely. I absolutely adore that we got such a, strong connection to Picard, an obvious one.
Big ones,
there are a few other things that we see in that brief scene. So sort of like it's both front and in the back, but you see Dr. Crush's Corkeroli 5 award, and we actually see it in Picard. So this is a kind of a great thing that, the award was such significance to her that she actually, basically has her with it at all times. And when she picks up the pad to reply to read to discover Wes on the other end, you can see the skyline of London behind her. So there's those who've been to London recognize the skyline. There is the Gherkin on one side, and then there is the Shard, the two pretty famous buildings in the back. And I actually wonder how long Beverly and Jack stayed there. I mean, it certainly better explains Jack's British accent that if he actually grew up there and not just went to school, which is what she mentions in Picard.
Yeah, agreed.
I love it. It's a great connection.
It is. It shows just how tightly they worked both of these series together, in tandem. Really cool. Another thing we see is the farm, finally, in Indiana that Janeway talked about. Kind of a missed opportunity, though, that we never got to see Janeway's mom, Gretchen, or her sister, Phoebe. I was kind of hoping they'd be hanging around, but oh well.
Yeah. Well,
I like the attire she's wearing, though, as she's working on her plant. Reminds me of the look when they're at the, I guess, what is it, the party? the remembering celebration. Yeah, that's kind of like layered top she's got going on. The color certainly reminds me of what she's wearing in the episode Endgame.
Generally speaking, something that, Chakotay said, when they're like, it's kind of great to see the com badge, the uniforms. I love the fact that we got to the future, if you will, uniforms and com badges, and just generally the look matches sort of the versions of future that we've seen in the previous productions. I have to say about the farm, this is one big farm building. I'm assuming it's some sort of a central thing that probably has grown over through the centuries, however long the Janeways owned it. But it certainly beats the look of a certain chateau.
Ooh, them's fighting words. I love it. Take that, Chateau Picard. How funny. Yep. Well, we would be remiss if we did not talk about Dr. Aaron, who makes a cameo once again. We are going into Temporal Mechanics 201. Oh my.
And I love think we need some kind of a, I don't know, PDF maybe? I would like to read like a little primer on temporal, I don't know, incursions or something.
I would just like to see the index. What are you going to learn? And then my head would explode right there and then I'd be done. But that's just me. One thing I noticed about at the Academy, Zero and Majel did the little Vulcan kiss, basically, with their fingers.
I know.
So that's implying that they're together, right?
That's exactly how I read it. This is a pretty, I don't know, intimate gesture, I suppose. I'm a little bit surprised that they just kind of did it in the middle of the Presidio or, wherever they were sitting.
PDA, oh my.
So it was nice and sweet, and it kind of reminds us of the fact that Zero is capable of having sensations. So that was a very lovely touch.
Good call there. Yes. So the Mars attacks tie into the events we see in Picard, as well as a short trek, Children of Mars, where we see a couple of kids watch unfold happen. Reminded me a lot of that short trek, actually, watching our kids on Prodigy. See what's happening.
It's like seeing, exactly, it's as if you have two cameras, and then we saw one pointing at the girls in Children of Mars, and then another one is like, oh, then here's what is going on in the plaza and with the rest of the cadets running around. This was heavy duty. And again, we're going to talk more about this particular scene later on. Something else that I found online, and it kind of blew my mind. I honestly did not notice it until I actually read the entire, thread on it. Beautiful thread that runs literally through all 2 seasons. And it's the blue flower of Solum. Now, we see it several times. It is introduced in season 1, if you remember the first time when the diviner gives Gwyn a flower that kind of just disappears into a little burst of dust. And that flower reappears throughout the 2 seasons. And the last appearance is actually in Janeway's garden. She is planting the blue flower of Solum. So as I actually saved this because I thought it was an absolutely lovely sentiment, and I think that's the implication of having that thread running through the 2 seasons.
I'm so glad you noticed this.
Yeah, a quote from Ambassador Spock, and this was quoted by the Star Trek Prodigy writers account online, when they said, they quoted, "One can begin to reshape the landscape with a single flower." I think it was a beautiful ending, before we learn of the Mars attack, but the fact is that the timeline has been reintegrated. Janeway seemingly, retired and found peace. Things are well, the kids are off in the academy, peace, healing, renewal. And then, of course, the other shoe drops. But nevertheless, I thought it was just such a beautiful thing. Search for it online. You'll find it because multiple times this flower just pops up, usually associated obviously with Gwyn, but that very last moment when Janeway is the one who's planting the flower was just absolutely beautiful.
Okay, can I make a confession? I did not realize that this was a thread through the whole show. I remember you asked Aaron about the flower. Like, is that what Janeway's planting in the garden in this episode?
And this is all thanks to York again. He's the one who noticed it, and I was so incredibly impressed that there's this wonderful little thing that reappears, sort of subliminal almost. So good. Yeah, it's beautifully done.
Well, speaking of Janeway, leave it up to her to speak up against Jellicoe yet again. We're not done with that yet. We know from Picard that he left Starfleet due to its decisions in the wake of this attack, and Janeway takes another tactic. She is going to fight from within.
Yeah. It's sad. I mean, we've seen Picard and Kirk kind of reach the point when they sort of question, how much more are they going to put on the altar of service to Starfleet rather than do something else in their personal lives. But, the moment then Chakotay shows up and says the Federation needs you, is Janeway really the person to say no? No, she's not. It's not in her nature. Something else I noticed that in those scenes that we have between, Janeway and Chakotay, and when they're all sitting discussing stuff with Jellicoe, we finally reached the point where the uniforms changed. They're now Picard uniforms, which we see in Picard. But all of the captains and the admirals that are sitting in the audience when Jellicoe's doing his speech, including Jellicoe himself, they're all wearing Voyager-style comm badges. It kind of nicely illustrates that when Jellicoe says, look, we don't have enough comm badges to upgrade half the fleet. So I presume that, well, at least Janeway is probably wearing her own Voyager comm badge from like 14 years prior.
Maybe.
Which is probably also true, to the rest of the personnel. So that was a nice little touch. Something else, you notice that she's still wearing Vice Admiral pips. So I am assuming that she still refused the promotion, which she implied was offered to her when she decided to retire early. So she's probably sort of like, no, I'm gonna, once I earn it, I'll get to it.
You can't bribe me with a promotion. I'm back, but you're not bribing.
So the overall feeling of that scene just generally was very sad. As you mentioned in the recap, that part of the charter has to wait. So when Jellicoe says, this future has to wait, that is very much sort of a dampener to the whole thing, because is Starfleet still Starfleet? As we already talked about the, at this point, future Admiral Janeway, the one that's mentioned in Picard several times. That's pretty much 2 decades after the events of Prodigy. So she is mentioned. She is Admiral, so she's there. She's part of whatever's going on with the changelings and everything. It makes me wonder if she actually ever attempted to retire and grow in a different direction again, or if that moment of change when Mars was attacked just basically made her accept the fact that she would never give up fighting for Starfleet's ideals and Starfleet's soul.
Oh, wow. Did she sell the farm? Like, who's tending to the garden?
Well, presumably her mother's alive, and
that's true.
Maybe there's staff. That's a very big farm. I'm sorry.
That would be a lot of upkeep for one person. Yeah, are you kidding me? Yeah, I don't know. One final note I have here is that hologram Janeway confirmed is sentient. We speculated on this.
Yeah.
And the EMH describes her as such in this episode. And not only that, but she's an ECH.
Yeah. And I wonder if EMH was actually the one to suggest that she become one. Seeing how he's the one who came up with that concept on Voyager. Remember when little pips would pop up when he himself would turn from EMH to ECH?
Moment.
Yeah, so that probably came from that, and I wouldn't be surprised the least that he was the one.
Definitely.
So a couple more things on my end. There's a very nice detail when the crew has to report to shipyards when Janeway calls them. In the backyard, all the Federation flags are flying half-mast, which is a very nice detail because this is right after the attack. The command station, that was a great touch. This is like literally paralleling the command dynamic that Janeway and Chakotay had. So, we had the command station on Voyager, the original Voyager, and now there is a command station, and, it was a great thing that we get the little repeat of that future, not flashback, what's the word? The future that Dal sees when he
the flash
accidentally...
forward.
the flash forward with them when, when they're dealing with the orb of time, stuff that he's not supposed to look, and he glimpses exactly that moment where, that seat was never my own. That's such a great reference.
It is.
And the last part before we go on into our main discussion, right before they proto-warp away, Gwyn says, "Let's reach the stars." I don't suppose that's her actual warp phrase. It's a little bit too,
Yeah.
But I love that actually echoes the motto of Starfleet Academy, ad astra per aspera, through hardships to stars.
Yeah.
So that it's a lovely, lovely period to the whole thing.
That
lovely
is.
ending.
And that would be a weird warp phrase. So she's going to have to think of something else.
Yeah, I assume this was probably like the actual, okay, let's get a move on,
Yeah.
Let's reach the stars. Rather than, you're dealing with the Klingons and like, yeah, warp 5, let's reach the stars.
Right, let's go. Well, how about we get into that discussion? Because we had a lot of observations. Now we got to get into the real meat of this thing. And so how about you take us away with any observation? Well, not observation. How about you take us away with some of the morals and meanings and things that you learned?
Well, first of all, I have to give huge kudos to whoever came up, and we're going to try to find out who came up with it, the title of the finale. It is because it is perfectly fitting, and Prodigy basically continues in the tradition of great finale titles of the TNG era, I feel. Ouroboros. We're dealing with the bootstrap paradox, where we discussed this in the previous part. I found a quote from T.S. Eliot, which kind of summarizes the stuff that we're dealing with here. What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. So how does Ouroboros tie into this whole thing? I admit, I delight in all these little meta moments that we can find throughout Star Trek franchise, thanks to various time shenanigans primarily. And this two-parter is undoubtedly probably one of the most brilliant ones. So Ouroboros is a very ancient symbol. It goes back as far as ancient Egypt, and you can find far and wide from Norse mythology to Indian Vedas. And it refers, throughout time to the irony, to various concepts related to beginning and the end of time, the cyclical nature of time, periodic renewal, infinity. And you may have seen it. It's commonly symbolized by a snake biting its own tail. So it's, a nice circular thing going on there. So, and this final episode illustrates and wraps up this situation beautifully. Dal places his combat for Rock to find in the past, and future springs forward. Now, having said that, even though we do have that wonderful moment where, we end at the beginning, the adventure is over. But from it, we actually get, the opportunity to have new stories. To quote what Janeway said in her log, there are always new chapters ahead, even when you think your story has finished. So.
Indeed.
All right. So, let me actually follow up with this, because I have like a little thing here that I wrote. We spoke about, the life, the only constant is change.
Yeah.
There's another thing here that should be mentioned, and that is, time's importance lies in what you do with it. For something so intangible. Yeah, it's great. It's like, think how many, like, we have literally the number of expressions we have about time. We make time, we spend time, we kill time, we waste time. Something happens in the nick of time. But, how often do people consciously consider the value of time? So it's great to see kind of 2 points related to that, specifically in this episode. One is, of course, Dal. He literally says, I used to always dream about going fast, but he has matured and grown so much, especially after this adventure with all this time stuff, time travel.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I like, I think I like taking one step at a time. So he learned to appreciate the time that he's given. As a matter of fact, that moment when they're all discussing this, and he's like, well, we got time. And Gwyn literally just shudders and is like, please, let's not talk about time.
No more of that.
On the somewhat sadder side of this spectrum is the fact that Janeway is really hopeful about her early retirement, but unfortunately she is the one person whose time is never really her own.
It's so true.
Yeah. again, not unlike Kirk, not unlike Picard. She's basically who faced the same kind of thoughts. But, the Federation was in peril, and she's the protector. She would never say no.
She is not going to just sit back and watch other people do that work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we mentioned last week, she is always it's an automatic thing for her to sacrifice herself, her well-being, her time, whatever. She sacrifices her retirement to try and get Starfleet back on its feet in this episode. That's about as big of a sacrifice as you could possibly make.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Dal. Yeah. And how much he has matured, especially this back half of season 2. Like what used to be Dal's nightmare is now his choice. And I'm thinking back to in Last Flight of the Protostar, where he didn't know what his role was if he wasn't in that center seat. If I'm not the leader, what am I? Well, now he's got a completely different perspective. Like he's perfectly okay with not rushing into the role of the captain. And you know what? It might end up that that's not even what he wants. He's open to other ideas now. And that's great. You know what? Another paradox here, the great paradox about that is that's what's going to set him up to be a great captain.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. I mean, it gives him an opportunity to develop so many more other talents, characteristics of his own, where he's not constantly in search of something, big and fast. It's kind of great to see him grow up quite literally.
And Dal is by far not the only character that grew in this series. I mean, he definitely grew a lot though, and it's certainly a big part of the whole arc. But I'm reminded of, I think it was Majel who said, perhaps such things are impossible until they're not. Think about where all of these kids started. They started as like prisoners on Tars Lamora, or Gwyn, subservient to the diviner and his wishes, to completely capable, independent, critically thinking, wise, thoughtful, all sorts of great descriptors. And they're on their own ship now, representing hope for Starfleet and people who need help. How amazing. Like this is a Star Trek message, not just a Prodigy message, but it's done so well here. This is just top-notch Star Trek. Where you start and where you end up and where you're going can be completely different things. You've got that chance to reach for the stars as long as your heart still beats. And so everybody out there, hey, if you're not where you want to be in your life, go boldly. See what happens. Keep fighting. You might just surprise yourself. And I can say that from my own personal experience. My own life today is not something I would have imagined for myself. I didn't ever know I'd be podcasting for Roddenberry and talking Star Trek and doing things that I do in my day-to-day life as a web developer. And that's how I'm earning a living. And I have a happy life. I'm very happy with where I am. I never knew for sure that would happen for me. But guess what? You keep trying until you get there. It can happen. And then on the flip side of that, however, sometimes you can shape your life, but then other times it shapes you. Like we get a nice, well, not a nice, it's actually a terrible moment with the attack on Mars. And it reminds me of so many events where, there's like that moment that creates a divide in how we relate to things. There's before the event and then there's after. And in that moment, Rock Talk asks the questions. What's happening? What does this mean? It's what you're all thinking collectively in a moment like that, but we don't know the answers because it's like you're living this life-altering moment, whether it's maybe it's a 9/11. If you're in the United States, you might remember that. We remember where we were when we found out when that happened. If we were, alive and have good memories of that time. For older folks, it might have been when JFK was assassinated. And then in more recent history, it might have been COVID. Things like what happened or what was life like before the lockdowns and dealing with the pandemic in real time to today where we're still dealing with the fallout from that. Yeah. But that leads to yet another quote, which is, we grow from what we leave behind. So it's all a matter of taking what you have, maybe not always what you want, but what you have, and making the most of it. You know, everything that you do builds up to how you face the present, and what you face in the present builds the future. Again, A leads to B leads to C. It's all cyclical. It's a paradox. It's the bootstrap. It's all those things.
Yeah. And ultimately, what we kind of started with when we were talking about things we learn, it all comes down to hope. You know, Janeway literally says, you know, beacon of light to those beyond our reach, seek out allies, and aid those who are left behind. So, you know, hope. This
Hope.
Star Trek is hope. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So, wow. I suppose we ought to wrap this up. We have been talking for a while. I could keep talking, but you know what? We do need to keep things somewhat concise since this is a podcast. So I just want to wrap up by saying, wow, what a ride this whole season has been. And I don't want to speak too much on the bigger picture because we are going to do a season wrap up next week. And so all I'll say is that for now, in its 2 seasons, Prodigy has been some of the most consistently good Trek ever created.
Yeah.
Filled with
Absolutely.
adventures. They take us through time and space, friendship and fun the whole way through. Whole lot more to say on that next week.
Yeah.
What are some of your final thoughts as we close out this one?
Just one, really. I mean, what a spectacular story. If there ever was a most complete ode to what an inspiration and hope the Star Trek is, it's this season, undoubtedly. So, you know, thank you from the bottom of our hearts to all the creative forces behind Prodigy for creating something like this. It's truly a gem.
Truly, truly is. Yes. And thank you. We're grateful. And I think a lot of Star Trek fans in general are very grateful that they have such fantastic Star Trek like this, that they can introduce to their kids or family members, watch it all together. This show is for everyone. It's a beautiful thing. But you know what? We've reached the end of our show. So before we go, we do have that one last thing to do, and that is to give you the special code you can use to enter our giveaway. This is the last one, and you're only going to find this one here, and the code is Jillian the Whale. GILLIANTHEWHALE, because she was such a hero. So to enter, go to the link provided in the description of the episode, look for it on the social media channels, and get those entries in. The giveaway is almost done.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. If you enjoyed our show, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or find us on your podcast catcher of choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, production and technical direction by Earl Green. Our website and the opportunity to comment and connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. And if you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Next week, we will wrap up our coverage of Season 2 by taking a look back at the season as a whole and sharing our thoughts. But for now, let's thank our cadets one last time for sharing their thoughts with us and hear what they have to say about Ouroboros.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
What is your name and age?
My name is Dietrich and my age is 6.
Did you like the episodes?
Yeah.
Are these your favorite of all Prodigy episodes? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was your favorite part?
When they sent the Protostar back in time.
Through the wormhole? Did you like watching the recaps of all the different things and their different parts of their adventure? Yeah, I liked that part too. What did you learn?
I learned that the Loom are almost in every single dimension.
The Loom are in every single dimension? Are you scared of the Loom?
Yeah.
They seem pretty scary, don't they? Yeah. Cool. Well, are you sad this season's over? Do you hope that they make a new season?
Yes.
Yes. We are excited for Prodigy Season 3. Let's hope they make it.
Let's go. Bring on those. Love this. Like this.
All right, what's your name and your age?
My name is Rook and my age is 9.
Rook, did you like the finale?
Yes.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was when Ascensia and Glenn were fighting.
That was pretty cool. And what did you learn from the episodes?
That even if you make mistakes, you can still try to make them up.
Yeah, kind of doing that the whole season, right? Trying to make up for the little mistake they made at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.